So today we are going to be talking about, for those who are real estate investors who are interested in real estate. Real estate is something that I've been working in for a long time. This is how I've met Robert. Robert, I would love if you can introduce yourself briefly in a second. But real estate is, for me, one of the most, or one of the best things that you can dabble in if you're looking for location independence. The reason is real estate, it has so many facets. You can do so many things with it. You can work in hospitality real estate. You can work with hospitality. You can work with flipping properties where you work seasonally. You can buy and hold. You can buy and flip. There's just a lot to do with it. It's not just buying the house that you live in. It's buying a property is an investment, and it's a tangible investment, which is different than a stock investment or what have you. But as with anything, if you're going to work in real estate, you need to understand all of it. You need to understand it comprehensively. And so that's what this series is going to be on. We're going to do a series on investing in the Middle East. We're going to just be spending the next few months going through all of the different facets of the Middle East so you can learn with us. And Robert is going to be with me on this journey. Robert, I would love if you can introduce yourself. And just before I go on, my name is Michelle Himden. I have worked in real estate for over a decade. And this is how I met Robert, because we were both in this space working with short-term rentals. Or Robert works with a lot more, but I work with short-term rentals and have been able to help him along with his business.
Absolutely. And Michelle, thank you so much for having me join. And I look forward to this journey into the Middle East. So my name is Robert Konekamp, and I'm the founder of Pocket Listing. And Pocket Listing is a new development / boutique resale brokerage that operates in the U.S. in Miami, D.C., Raleigh, Durham, Northern Virginia, and then also Dubai. And given your interest in independent working, locations and working, I'm happy to talk about the UAE and, specifically Dubai today, because it does provide a great environment for you to accommodate all those different factors that you just mentioned in terms of whether it be flipping property, renting property, being in the hospitality industry and so forth. Because it is all location dependent. How successful you will be is determined by that location. So.
Absolutely. And so I think I just want to go back so that people understand a little bit more about what you do. So I found really fascinating what you, a lot of the properties, so you have a lot of relations in the UAE. You got to understand the Middle East early in your career. You found that you really loved working in the UAE. And I want to ask more questions about that later. But so people understand, you have, if I understand correctly, you have access to properties that no one else has access to buildings that are hot on the market, already sold out, and because of your long-lasting relationships with a lot of these buildings, with a lot of these developers, you have properties that are sold out, and only your clients can buy these. Is that correct? Do I understand correctly?
That is correct. So because of the relationships that I've established over the last 7 years doing business in the UAE, I've been able to acquire opportunities in buildings, because the way that it works in Dubai is, in most markets, a building goes to market and it's on the market for years until it sells out. And usually you'll still have units available when the building is complete. In Dubai, buildings of hundreds plus units sell out within hours. And there's a queue, a line that starts a day before. And all these different brokers and buyer representatives and even buyers, investors are in this line waiting to purchase these properties. And so what happens is a lot of people are left at launch without a property because there was so much demand. And because I've established the relationship that I've established with the developers that we work with, and where that started was China. So I started a company in China about 10 years ago to bring Chinese investors to the UAE and the US market. And the Chinese were, everybody wanted to get the Chinese money, right? And so that gave me the upper hand. And because I established a relationship in China, I had a team in China, I had a company in Shenzhen as well as Hong Kong, and all of my team spoke Mandarin. We were able to take developers in the UAE, bring them to China on roadshows, and represent them as their, representation to sell property to Chinese investors. So that was where my initial relationship was established. Now, the UAE has a huge, the investments coming from the Indians, from the Pakistanis, from the Chinese, from all different, foreign investors. And U.S. Americans are in the top 5 now, but it's very rarely do I even see an American when I spend time in Dubai. And I'm in Dubai at least 4 or 5 times a year. And I rarely meet an American unless they're coming with me. And so I said, hey, there's a need for American investment into Dubai because it's such an amazing market and the Americans are smart investors, but for some reason they're not educated enough and they have misconceptions that make them avoid investing in foreign markets. And so I said, I'm going to work with the developers who want to reach American clients and create an educational process that requires, understanding the Dubai market, where you make money, how you make money, and then helping them feel more comfortable about entering a foreign market. And because of that relationship, the developers have given me stock because I said, hey guys, no, the Americans are never going to buy like all the other foreign nationals do. They're not going to stand in line and buy a building that they've never been in that's not going to be built for 4 or 5 years. And they're definitely not going to buy it from overseas. So I said, if you want to access the American market, you have to give me stock in these buildings that sell out because I need more time to educate our investor clients as well as provide them an opportunity in a manner that doesn't seem rushed. Dubai time is very fast. And it's so fast that Americans are afraid of it. They think it's a scam. And that's not the way that it is. I do business in many international markets, and a lot of the international markets are very fast compared to the United States. So because of my relationships and because of the want of developers in the UAE to reach American investors, and I'm a bridge to that connection, and I work closely with the government, the DLD, all the different facets of the Dubai, real estate and the government that will not only help educate the U.S. clients, but also provide us an upper hand in the market because of the relationships that we've established that allow us to have certain benefits like off-plan units in buildings that are sold out.
So I want to get into, I come from New York, right? So in New York, property hits the market within 2 hours, it's sold out, the same thing. So I think I'm used to this speed, but most of the US is, you're right, they're not used to it. They're used to like going and visiting, and then they bring their mom and they bring their friend, and like they get everybody's opinion on it before they buy it, and they want to see it and feel it and touch it. Um, and I think what I want to open up today is the idea that you don't really, I mean, it's amazing that people are coming with you to visit, but a lot of these properties are so safe, they're so secure that you don't actually need to go visit the property in person. Like you have a full team on the ground who's vetting the properties, who can send videos, who can do live video calls. And it really makes it possible if people want that they can simply like purchase that they can do a video call and buy the property. Maybe they want to visit Dubai, they've visited, they haven't visited. I've been to Dubai a handful of times. It's a key backstory for everyone else. Like I've been a digital nomad for 6 years, and so Dubai was always my point between the east and the west. And so anytime I went from west to east or east to west, I'm always passing through Dubai and spending a couple days there because I love it there. There's such an amazing energy. So talk me through. We're talking today mostly about the UAE because this is your specialty, but we also have some up and coming markets, some key markets that people really like. Bahrain, we have Qatar, Saudi Arabia is one that makes people nervous, but honestly, there's a lot of interesting stuff happening there. If you're open to it, I think they're trying to mimic what was done in the UAE. But the original, the OG, is the UAE, and they took this. Dubai is the most famous. They took this spot in the middle of the desert that was nothing before. I visited old Dubai, and it was like really a tiny little town, and it blew up into this like almost Disney World, right? Like you go there, and it's like anyone from anywhere in the world can feel at home there. They have stuff from the US, they have stuff from England, they have stuff from Spain, they have like all of these little markets because they have a huge hub of people who have made it their home because they have sun 365 days a year. They have air conditioning, they have space, like you can have a beautiful luxury apartment. Every building I went to had a pool, had a gym, had everything in it. You can have really an amazing lifestyle. For not that much money. And so talk me through when you look at buildings, what are the considerations that you have when you go through the building, when you go through a new building? I know you work with DMAC, and what are some of the other developers that you work with?
So Damac is the number one private developer in Dubai, and they are a good developer. They do, like any other large developer, have their issues with growth, and that's another conversation. But Ellington is an amazing developer. Emar is the best. You know, Emar's number one. Emar is a larger developer compared to Ellington. Ellington's a more boutique developer, but Ellington, all their projects sell out. All their projects provide an amazing rental return, whether it be short term or long term. And in long term, the expats and the end users that live in Dubai and on the long term basis, they love an Ellington product because they know that the quality is there and the amenities. Like you just said, Dubai is very amenity rich. No matter what building or developer you're in, it's very amenity rich. They do that because, of course, they do mitigate the heat outside. Um, then also other developers you have, and I'm going to name the ones that I like, that I believe in, because there's plenty of them. But yeah, so Emar, Ellington, Demac, um, Nakhil is a government-backed developer, and Dubai Holdings just bought them, or they migrated, and so they've built the Palm, and they're going to be building Jebel Ali, which is the next Palm. And these developers, you just said, like, what do you look for when you go into Dubai and these buildings and developers? A lot of these buildings aren't even built yet. So I have to go back to the buildings that were built, and I talk to the people that live there. I talk to the Airbnb management companies. I don't even talk to the owners. I talk to the people who open the door for you and show you the place. In Dubai, that's how it works in most places. I mean, I'm in DC now, and if I go to an Airbnb, I'm not getting greeted by anybody. I'm going to be told an access code, and I'm going to access it on my own, and I'm going to read a manual and figure out any questions, and then call the host if I need it. Whereas in Dubai, they meet you there, they walk you through the property, they give you all the information that you need. They're right there on WhatsApp, ready to come and answer any questions. If there's a problem, there's a crew that comes out within hours to fix it. So it's a great system in place for management. But I go as far as talking to those people because they're on the ground. They're talking to the people who are renting and coming, and they understand the developers because they're managing units in different buildings developed by different developers. And they'll tell me which ones are fast to fix things and which ones are slow and which ones have more problems. And these are all very important factors because when an investor comes to us and says, we want to invest in Dubai or the UAE, yes, you could go to any broker in the UAE and buy, and they're happy to sell you. If you come to me, I want to know your strategy first, and once I understand your strategy, that'll determine how I help you invest into Dubai or my team. Because you may want a property, but you told me your strategy, and I'll tell you that property doesn't meet your strategy. But here's an opportunity that does, and here's a location that you would have never thought to invest in, but because of your strategy, I'm going to take you here instead of there. That is what's most important, is the knowledge of the market. And there's so many different sub-markets in Dubai, in the UAE, that you have to understand all of them to know where the money is coming and going, and which projects are coming that are going to bring the value up in that area, and which projects are leaving that are going to reduce the value in the area. Because Dubai is an amazing market, and you can see 4 or 5%, or you can see 15 to 20% returns on short term. It's all about the location and the developer.
So, um, I'm just so I want to have another conversation about choosing your investment strategy because I think people getting into real estate for the first time don't even know what their investment strategy is. They just want to buy property and see money made on the property. And again, we're all about location and independent lifestyle. So, are you looking for long-term investment, short-term investment? Are you looking, to find Airbnb? What are the returns on an Airbnb? These are all really good conversations to have. But the first conversation is, can I take my hard-earned US dollars and invest them in the UAE? And is it safe? Am I just losing that money? Can the government simply decide that foreign investments are no longer belonging to foreigners and they take it away? How do you secure it? So you go through a building, you make sure that the building is good, you make sure that the developer is finishing his work. And I believe you said there are rules in place
Yeah.
for people who are new to this, if you buy a property that the construction's not yet completed, you're putting your money in and you're hoping that the construction is completed. And anyone who's been in real estate has seen these nightmare projects. You put the
Mhm.
money in and maybe you get to the second or third phase and then the property sits and it
Yes.
sits for a decade or 20 years.
Yes.
Maybe eventually someone picks it up or it just gets demolished and then you've lost all of your money. What is now? I understand that there are strict laws in Dubai or in the UAE in general to make sure that this doesn't happen. What are the requirements from a government perspective, and then what are the developers that you're working with doing on top of that to make sure that the construction projects are being finished?
So that's a good question. So first, let's mention the fact that in every market around the world, there's been a building that was started and investors invested into it and it didn't get completed. Okay, that happens everywhere
Yeah.
in the world, and it has happened in Dubai. And about a decade, a little over a decade ago, I think it was like 2008 to 2012, given in that time frame, there was a lot of developers who they left Dubai with projects unfinished and investors lost their money. Okay. And I'm going to talk about that because it's something that needs to be talked about. But then let's talk about what was done to mitigate that in the future. So Sheikh Mohammed is a great ruler. Okay. And Sheikh Mohammed said, hey, no one's going to invest in Dubai if everybody thinks that they're going to lose their money. So I and my team are going to come together and we're going to create different guidelines and processes and that will require developers to operate at a certain standard so that we will mitigate the risk of developers not finishing on time and leaving a project behind and not completing it. And so the DLD is a Dubai Land Department, and the DLD has created amazing investor protection programs. So escrow is one of those programs. So there's escrow account that's controlled and managed outside the developer. And what happens is you as the investor will put your money into escrow, and the DLD does not release escrow until certain guidelines, certain, in the construction process, there's certain, timelines that have to be met. And if those timelines are not met and the property isn't to where it needs to be at that timeline, then the DLD isn't going to release the money. So that forces the developer to do their best to stay on time and to continue to construct the building in the manner that was laid out, right? And because at the end of the day, the investor loses money if they don't get their property handed over in a timely manner. And there's a lot of developers who don't hand over their property in a timely manner. And that is why you have to choose the right developer and the right location. There's some developers that will deliver faster on one location and slower on another location. And you can tell the difference because the other location they're not delivering on is not the high profit luxury product, whereas they'll deliver on that product that's being built on the marina, on the water. Whereas if you go to Dubai Hills or Damac Hills, you'll see that some of those projects are delayed, right? But that's a lower income demographic compared to the ones that are buying, looking at over the water, spending millions of dollars on a unit. Whereas out there, they're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on a unit.
So just so I understand, so there's an organization, a separate organization called the DLD, the Dubai Land Department, and they're responsible for making sure that every developer is meeting the timeline and also the quality standard that they set out before people started investing in this project. Do I understand that correctly?
Exactly.
And so who's inspecting these? Because Sheikh Mohammed is also invested in, so, like he owns some of these, sometimes up to 90% of some of these projects, right? So like, what is the risk for him like changing the rules on somebody?
All right. So here's another factor. Like other cities, because Dubai is a city, a lot of people think that Dubai is a country. It's an actual city. The UAE is the country. And it's a police state. Okay. And we're going to talk about safety later, but that's why it's so safe. Because a, you have everything's being watched and monitored. And it's so safe because of that. And so people will complain about it and say, well, I don't want to go there because I can't walk on the street and kiss my girlfriend or hold hands or have a drink or wear certain items of clothing. And some of that, yes, as in any country, you don't want to be disrespectful to the culture, right? But it's not like that. You aren't getting arrested because you kissed your girlfriend on the side of the street. You're not, or even, or your partner. It doesn't matter. You're very safe. I'm leaving my wallet or my phone out. I wear my watch wherever I go there. I don't have to. Here in DC, I mean, I have to take my watch off and put it in my pocket sometimes because I could likely get robbed. Same in Miami, not as so much in North Carolina. Dubai, I don't have to worry about any of that. And so look at that safety. Look at the fact that it's a police state. So then look at the fact that you just said that Sheikh Mohammed could come and change whatever. And it's true because they are a ruler. It's a ruling family. So they can change the laws at any time. And again, Dubai has freehold property. There's some areas in the UAE that are not freehold, but Dubai, most of it is freehold. So when you buy a property, you own that property. Whereas in China, you buy a 99-year lease or a 100-year lease. And same with in some parts of the UAE, it's not freehold. So I want to make it clear that when you buy in Dubai, as long as you're buying in the right area, which is most areas, it's freehold. So you own that property 100%. No one can come take it from you.
That's amazing. So just to um, lay it out in layman's terms for other people. So there are two different types of properties. You can either buy a land lease where you lease the land and you own the building or what have you. And this is where you see some of these like bizarrely cheap properties that you're like, what do you mean it's only $20,000? Well, you're always paying rent on the land. You're saying that this is a freehold, which means that it's kind of more what Americans are typically used to, where they buy the property, they own the property, they own the land. But these are condo buildings; they're not houses. So you're not owning the land; you're owning a share in the building. Is that correct?
Correct. Just like in the United States or New York, New York City, and there's fees. There's not like an HOA, whereas you have the residents controlling things. There's a management company, and then there's fees, and the fees are the lowest some of the lowest in the world. Dollars a square foot. Whereas like in Miami, I could pay $10,000 a month for fees on a luxury high end penthouse.
And I want to get into that because these fees paid, they're not just fees that go to like a management board that you never get
No.
anything from it. You get really cool stuff. But I want to
Yeah.
put a pause on that. And because I just want to highlight that I feel for me, if I'm investing, a lot of these buildings have 300, 400, 500 units, right? Or maybe I'm a little bit, maybe less than that. Depending on the size of the building, they have a lot of units. If you're investing in a share in a building and there's at least 200 other people invested in the building, there's safety in numbers, right? So like 200 people that have each invested $500,000 or $1 million, they're not just letting their money disappear. Like you collectively are ensuring the safety of this building. And I think like for anyone who's not visited the UAE, Dubai, you really need to go there and see. It's not. I think we have an old, a very outdated notion of what the Middle East is. We've seen everything in the news from the 80s, and it's, like the Middle East then and the Middle East now are very, very different places. And I think, and of course, people are, what's to stop them from regressing to that? But it's important to highlight that the UAE has been progressive for a long time now, before the 80s. Am I correct?
Absolutely. I mean, look at Abu Dhabi. Abu Dhabi is an amazing city. A lot of people don't know about it. They've never been there. If they have, they flew through it. But Abu Dhabi, it's one of the richest, if not the richest emirate, right? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a slower emirate. It's not fast paced like Dubai. It's very much slow pace, and it's more family oriented, right? But Abu Dhabi has done an amazing job. Dubai has done an amazing job. Rak Al Haima, that's coming up. That's the place we'll talk about. Rak, and all these different markets that are coming up. I mean, they're growing from Dubai, right? They're learning from Dubai. They're growing from Dubai. Saudi Arabia is learning from Dubai, right? Now Saudi Arabia is a little bit too late to the game. No offense, MBS, but it's the
I don't
truth.
think so. We can talk about that
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
later.
yeah. We will. At the end of the day, it's all about branding. But
Yeah.
yeah. So, but yes, it's very. You should come to the UAE, to Dubai, and experience it all. Like when you're at the airport at 2 o'clock in the morning and it's packed like New York City on a Christmas travel holiday, and it's just 2 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday or Wednesday. It shows you the power. When you go to the mall at 12 o'clock at night and it's more packed than the busiest malls here in the United States at rush hour during Christmas, it says something. And it's not just Christmas. I'm in the mall. I don't like going to the mall, but Dubai Mall is an amazing place and there's so many things to do. And
It
so
is.
you just don't go there to shop. You go there to do a lot of other things. Eat food, ski, all kinds of different things.
Aquarium.
I'm sorry?
They have an aquarium, a waterfall.
Yes, Dubai Mall, yeah, and then
It's
the Mall of Emirates has a ski, slope and indoor snow. So there's so many opportunities. So you just have to come and see it for yourself. But when you see it, the data speaks for itself. And yes, there are power in numbers, but you have to be careful with that because there's so many investors out there, and if you go sell out a building you have units starting at $500,000, if it's a great location, it's different. But if it's not the best location, yes, it's going to sell out, but it's going to sell out to a bunch of investors. And then that safety in numbers is not so powerful because now you have a bunch of investors who are buying at the lower price point, and sometimes they have to sell faster than the other guy for a lesser price than the other guy because of whatever cash needs they had, and then they ruin the comps, right? I like to focus on more luxury because The wealthy people are more, they will control the value better than the investors that are new to the game and that are buying these $300,000 or $500,000 units. When a wealthy investor comes in and spends 3 million, 5 million, 10 million USD, 20 million USD, well, them and a smaller group of people compared to the lower priced properties, they come together and they pay a good price for their property and they keep the property up. And then their wealthy friends are coming and buying. And Dubai just attracts probably more millionaires and billionaires than anywhere right now. And I may not be true to that statement completely, but they're attracting a large number compared to any other country and city in the world, right? And so I feel strongly in the super luxury market because they do control the numbers better. But when you're in America, yes, the investor is going to be different, a different mentality. But the foreign investor in Dubai, it's a very different mentality. And whereas power and numbers in that smaller price point is safer in the US, it's not as safe in Dubai unless you pick the right product. And that's what's key. You have to pick the right product and the right location and the right developer. And you'll hear me say that anytime you ask me what's my strategy, and because those are the three most important factors to the success of investing in Dubai.
So you touched on, and I want to go briefly into, if somebody's listening to this podcast and they're like, okay, I want to invest, or I'm curious about investing, and I'm going to come visit Dubai, and what can you show me? What, before they decide to come, what are some of the, if they're going to get into Dubai, what do you believe are the legal and financial requirements? Who can invest? Is investment open to anyone from anywhere in the world? Is it open to only certain countries? And what do you think is really the minimum amount that somebody should have cash on hand, able to invest, as well as like monthly recurring payments? Because I believe you can still take a loan, right? You don't need to pay full cash up front. You can finance it for up to 5 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely.
All right. First off, anybody can buy in the UAE. It doesn't matter where you're from. You can just come there and buy. You have to be able to get into the country, so you have to be accepted that way. But if you can make it into the country legally, you can legally purchase a property in Dubai. Secondly, mortgages. All right, there are no mortgages for off-plan properties. There are some companies that might offer some sort of program for an off-plan property, but a majority of the mortgages are going to be for built properties, completed properties, right? And for those, a lot of the same regulations or guidelines that you have in the US to get a mortgage are the same here in Dubai. It's a little bit, I would say it's a little bit easier in Dubai to get a mortgage. You do have to prove income. Your income requirements may be lower than the United States. Some lenders vary, some are higher. You're typically going to put 20 to 25% down. And this is as a foreigner. So you can get a mortgage as a foreigner on a completed property. Some lenders will give you money on a property that's 50% complete. But here's where the great part of Dubai, investing in Dubai comes, and where you can make your money go far, is the developer for off-plan provides 0% interest financing. And usually it's at a 70-30 or 80-20 program. So you pay 70% in payments and then you pay 30 at handover, or vice versa, 80% and then 20% at handover. Every
And so,
property, go ahead.
sorry, I just want to ask, if
Okay.
somebody's buying into the developer's financing, um, what investment period are we looking at? Is it 10-year, 20-year, 30-year? Like, how
So
long do you have to repay this?
this could be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, depending on how large the project is, where it's located, and when ground is being broken, right?
And if somebody takes that developer financing, so say like I take the 5-year plan, so I have to pay it off in 5 years, but the construction finishes, can I then refinance it and get a mortgage because it's then a
Yes.
built property to pay
Yes.
off the debt to the okay. So
Well, you wouldn't
assuming
get
it doesn't go
most.
haywire.
So only all right. So there's most payment plans are 70-20 or 70-30 or 80-20. There are some post payment, like handover payment plans, right? So some developers, and you went to Katura Reserve with Zach when you were visiting us, right?
Yeah.
And so Katura, they will finance 40% over 4 years, I believe it is. So you're paying 60% in payments, and then at handover, you start financing that remaining 40%. And I think you have over 4 years to finance that. If you do it right, the amount of money that you'll make from short-term rental, and that area is within 10 minutes from downtown Dubai, and it has the transportation to get you there very quickly. So it'll do very well on the long-term and the short-term market. You'll cover your payments or most of your payments after handover. So that's a great investment because you say it's a $1.2 million property, you only had to pay 60% of it before you started producing income. And that income you're producing will most likely cover all or most of the payments that you have left if you're doing short-term rentals. Long-term rentals won't provide the same ratio. So, but that's the payment plan. So let's say that you start a property, like you want to buy a property that's off plan and it's going to be done in 2027. So you're going to put 24% down. Now, there's one thing I want the viewers and you to understand is that there's a 4% DLD land tax, right? It's from the government. And it's going to be on every transaction, and it's a one-time fee, and it's never paid again. So every property that you buy, you're paying 104% for that property because there is a 4% DLD tax. So when you purchase an off-plan property, you're going to put 24% down, 20% down to the property, 4% goes to DLD. And then you're going to break your payments up within quarterly payments. And that quarterly payment could be 4 or 5%. Some developers will say, pay me 1% a month. Okay. And you're going to pay that until your handover, and then you'll pay the remaining balance. Now, we have a strategy that we utilize to create a faster return and a larger return on investment. And that is by taking pre-planned property that we were able to get for our clients in buildings that are sold out. And when you buy a property in a building that's sold out, remember there was a line of people, and it could be hundreds or longer of people who didn't get to buy a unit. So I could take that contract if the developer allows. Not all developers allow this, and this is a good thing that they don't allow it. But the ones that do, I can take that contract and I can just walk downstairs and I can just start selling my units for $10,000 or $20,000 more to the people who couldn't get a unit. That's powerful. You can't do that in most places. The next part of it is that, and again, it's all about the developer. Some developers don't allow that. And I don't want the developer to allow it, to be honest with you, because that creates more volatility. But for short-term little flips, I'm just giving you ideas of how you can make money. And I don't suggest all these ideas. I'm just showing there's a possibility for everybody at whatever level you're entering the game to perform. And so I would say that, I'm sorry, I lost you for a second. So I would say that if you buy a property and you put 24% down and you make the payment plan for let's just call it 18 months. So let's just use a number. Let's say the property is $450,000. Okay. So after 18 months, I'll have paid around $235,000 in payments for a $450,000 property. So I'm a little bit over 50% into it. And now I'm going to go take that contract and I'm going to try to sell it. It's never a guarantee that I'm going to be able to sell it, but if you buy in the right location in a building that was sold out by a developer that's amazing and has a great track record, you will sell your contract. But if you buy in a building that's not in a great location, not by a great developer, and it just doesn't have, it's not sold out, you will probably not sell your contract. You'll have to hold off until it's completed and sell it to an end user. Whereas where you make the most money. So if you want to make the most money in Dubai, you buy pre-plan, you hold it, and you sell it to an end user. If you want to make even more money and you have risk appetite, you buy multiple units, you put them on payment plans, you pay off 50% of it or 60% of it, and then you flip those properties, those contracts for 10, 15% return. Most of these in places that I'm putting an investment or an investor into are seeing a 19+% return. The average return on capital appreciation in Dubai is 18 to 20% over all of it. So yes, you have places that only appreciate 3 or 4%, like in any other market, but most markets are only appreciating 3 or 4% in the US and in the UK. But there are pockets that increase 20%, 30% in any market that you go to. So it's not unheard of to see these numbers in Dubai. It's just not believable because they don't know Dubai and they're not looking at it as another market. I look at real estate as real estate, location, location, location. It doesn't matter where it is. We're all humans. We all need a place to live. And we like to be in a location that's conducive to our lifestyle, right? And so we'll pay more for a property that's downtown and has access to all the amenities than one that's all the way out in suburbia that I have to drive 30 minutes to get to anywhere. It's just common sense, no matter where you're at in the world. It's the same things apply to Dubai, you know?
And I think I want to get into that, into where to buy. And I think all of these are really fascinating topics. And we're going to dive really deep into this in this series. Tell me now, if I want to invest in Dubai and I have $20,000, is it enough to get started?
Yes and no. Okay. Yes, because I have other people who have $20,000 and they want to invest in Dubai. But I tell anybody that wants to invest with me, because I'm not selling dreams here. All right. If you don't have the money to pay the property in full or the means to go finance it after a certain part of the investment, whether it's completed or you can find a mortgage to give you a 50%, once it's 50% completed. Unless you have a strategy to exit with either all the money or a mortgage, then you don't want to invest because you take a risk. But if you like to risk, if you like to buy Bitcoin, if you like to play poker, if you like to go do things that are very risky, well then yeah, you take your 20 grand and we'll make it work somewhere, but you may lose it, right? And that's what I'm saying is like
Yeah.
these investors who want to jump in with 20 grand, is it possible? And have I seen people do it? Yes. Is it risky? Oh, it's very risky, right? So I would say, hey,
Yeah.
go get 10 of your friends and you each put 220 grand in and let's go find a unit, say in DeMac Hills, that's 150 grand brand new, that will increase at minimum 10%, right? So now everybody's
Right.
seeing $2,000 on their $20,000 minimum, right?
Yeah. And
And that's
so
not a lot
I
of
know you
money.
spoke, it's not, it's really
No.
not. People don't understand like, and I always say if you can make $20,000, you can make 200,000. If you can make
Exactly.
200,000, you can make 2 million. It grows. It grows like money grows. But so if you and I know you said Tobacco Hills is not necessarily the best place to invest because it's getting less priority than some of the wealthier areas, and definitely someone coming in, you're going to give them that strategy talk. Like the wealthy areas are safer than the budget areas. Um,
But the budget
so
area, but there's a lot of money to be made in budget areas. We'll talk about that later, but I want to make it clear. There's like, listen, if an investor comes to me and they're not about like the shiny objects, like, oh, I want to have a beautiful view. I want to tell my friends that I can see the Burj Khalifa from my condo. Well, then I'm going to take you to Dubai South and we're going to buy some land and we're going to make money, right?
you're telling me where to buy it, but you think probably minimum $200,000 cash in hand before I am ready to invest if I want to make sure that I'm not just losing my money. Is that correct?
Tell you what, I can take 250 to 300,000. I can go get you a studio in Business Bay and I can generate about 25 to 30 grand a year in rental return, rental
That's
income.
incredible. And that's
Okay.
for anyone who's listening who hasn't yet done this, I can tell you 25 to 30,000, you are living like a king or queen in Bali, in Thailand, in any of these places. It is enough. But if you're not that game yet, you may want to then take that 250, 300,000, buy something and flip it. And we can talk about that later because there are so many strategies. You can buy a property, hold it, run it as an Airbnb. This is where I get involved. You can buy a property, you can flip it, you can flip the title. There's a lot of different ways that you can flip it before, after build. Um, but still, let's say if you want to get into it, if you don't have 200,000, get 9 other friends together. You have 200, 250,000,
Yes.
and then you're good for a safe investment. And we can talk about hiring the right attorney, making sure your paperwork is up to date. Someone once told me you can buy anywhere in the world, but if you want to make sure the deal doesn't go bad, make sure to hire a good attorney and don't go
Yes.
cheap on the attorney because the
Yes.
attorney is the one who is going to protect you in every level. That is his job to protect you. And so I believe, Robert, you also have a legal team that you work with to make sure that clients are safe in their investments. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, we hold your hand throughout the entire process. So from finding for curating your strategy to finding the right project, and then taking that strategy because you may not have the same strategy as others.
But this is amazing. So if someone wants to work with you, I'm going to put the link below so that you can reach out, schedule an appointment, talk through. Make sure you have before you book with us. Make sure you have about 250,000 to invest between you and your friends, and we will from there make sure that your investment grows 18 to 20%. I think minimum.
Yeah.
Or it's depends on what you're buying. Honestly,
Exactly.
if you're buying a $40 million property, you don't necessarily expect to see 18 to 20%. You might see 10%, and that's also okay.
you you may, if you buy in the right place, you may just see 20% on that money. And I've watched 50 to
That's
80%
incredible.
happen on the palm. The one thing I want to leave you guys with is even if you don't have enough money to go buy a property, there are ways to go sublease a property. So you lease a property for rent and then you Airbnb it out. And that is allowed in some buildings. And some owners will allow you to do that. So that's another option. It's not as profitable because you're not owning the real estate. But if you went and put 10 properties under lease and then Airbnb those out, you're going to create some sort of profit center. And so that's just there's many different ways to get into the real estate market in Dubai. And that's just one of the many ways that don't require so much money down. There's platforms that allow you to invest as a group. But the one thing I'll say is, like, in Dubai, if you have 10 people who want to invest in property, you don't have to go create LLCs and all that. You literally, all 10 people go on the deed. Simple. So
That's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. So we will, in future episodes, we'll talk about how we're going to help you, those who do want to get in for the first time and invest their $20,000. People who maybe want to get into rental arbitrage, like you said. I don't think we deal with it, but we can definitely refer you to the right person, or we can, possibly we have a client that wants to do rental arbitrage with you, that wants to lease to you instead of leasing to, managing the Airbnb on their own. This is all great. Thank you so much. This has been incredible, and everyone, I'm really looking forward to walking through this series with you.
Yes, me too. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Michelle, for your time, and I look forward to that as well.